Welcome back. You're still watching Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. I'm joined by a political analyst and public affairs commentator, Samaila Musa, for discussion on Zamfara State politics and matters arising. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Having me. Good evening, viewers.
Good evening. All right, so the victory of the PDP in the Zamfara State governorship election came as a big surprise. How did it happen?
Well, that's actually as a result of so many intrigues that has happened in that state. What that victory shows is that the people of the states are more awakened politically. So many things have gone wrong in Zamfara states. Like you and I know that Zamfara happens to be one of the most volatile states in Nigeria as we speak now, or even in northern Nigeria, when it comes to terrorism, banditry, and all of that. And as a result, because you can attribute that as a result of bad governance to a large extent. I know they've battled with these insecurity issues for quite some times. But when people who don't know what governance is all about are actually at the helm of affairs, it actually makes whatever situation, it makes it worse. And that is what has been the experience in Zamfara. When this governor, of course, you and I, or quite a lot of people in Nigeria would be like, oh, who is this guy who just came from nowhere and became the governor of Zamfara? Dauda Lawal has been around for some times, but he wasn't in politics. So by the time he saw what was happening and observed what was happening in his home state, as a banker, he felt this is high time to quit whatever else is left for him in banking to go rescue that state. And the people of Zamfara are awakening enough to know that governance is not about party. Because we saw at a point where Dauda Lawal also was trying to contest under the APC, they shut the door against him by some forces, some people who felt, oh, they call the shots. But because the man is so determined enough to say, look, it's whatever it is, all I'm concerned about is to come and rescue my people, move my state from the dungeon that Zamfara has found itself. Zamfara became a massacre ground. You can call it Golgotha at several points, not just at some point, at several points. Over the years, Zamfara became something else. Zamfara that was actually not on the map, except for those days where Zamfara was known for production of cotton. And all of a sudden, Zamfara became a news all over the world because it has become a killing ground. And here comes somebody, a technocrat who feels enough of this. I need to come and put a stop to all this. And he came, he saw and he conquered. He contested election against all odds. Back and forth, we saw how people, started bringing up court cases against his nomination, against, him contesting under the PDP and all that. But this man was dogged enough. By the grace of God, he was able to surmount all that. So really, it didn't come as a surprise to quite a lot of people. Because when you have charlatans in governance, you have a serious problem in your hands. And that's what we saw in Zamfara.
All right,
when this man came on board, I'm just trying to enlighten you a little bit, right? When this man came on board, he met no money in the treasury of Zamfara State. I mean, just by accident, he bumped into some 3 million naira in one of the accounts belonging to the states. He came on board, no salary. He inherited backlog of salary arrears to about 3 months. You understand? So for a new governor, you begin to wonder, how does he want to navigate around? How does he want to solve these issues? There are myriads of issues in that state. government agencies are hardly in operation for just a simple reason. The simple reason was the fact that there was backlog of debts from the power generating company in Zamfara State. There was no money to buy just little things as stationery to run an office. And you and I have worked in one place or the other. We know that stationery matters a lot to run an office. Almost every government parastatal in Zamfara was at a stage where you can call comatose. No any visible infrastructure. People were just saying they are contractors in Zamfara without meaningful projects going on, because we saw.
All right, Mr. Musa.
Yes.
So, I mean, many say Dauda Lawal benefited from the anti-party activities of aggrieved APC members. Do you think the governor would have won if not for the infighting within the APC?
You look, regardless, the people of Zamfara are woke now. That's the right word to use. They are woke now. You can do all your fightings as far as you're concerned, or as far as you want to take it to. But what is important is that people are beginning to, it's like a self-realization to say, look, we've been taken for granted for how many years? When we talk about Goldwater, we talk about a place where people are slaughtered, are massacred on daily basis. We have lost count. When you see Zamfara breaking news, 18 people killed, 100 people killed, it's no longer a news. The people are tired.
All right, so all of this you have said on one side, but honestly, do you think the governor would have won if not for the infighting within the APC?
Whether it's infighting or no infighting, what I'm trying to let you understand is that the people of the state are awakened. They are woke right now. Whether there's infighting or not infighting, we saw how much they tried to prevent this man from emerging as a candidate of any political party at all.
All right, so I would take that as a yes. So let's go on. I mean, Governor Dauda Lawal is 1 month in office. How will you assess his administration so far?
I was trying to let you understand the kind of challenges this man met on ground. You see, even the courts of law that are there to prosecute perpetrators, to prosecute criminals, are almost non-functional, for single reason that there's no money on ground to run the affairs of this parastatal or this courts. We saw in Zamfara that even the students of that state who are schooling abroad, majority of them have been withdrawn from those schools for a single reason. The state wasn't paying their fees any longer. Security agencies, and we know, you and I know, that the major problem is Zamfara as we speak now, apart from the economic problem that has been at the stage of a comatose, is insecurity issues. Security agencies don't even have money available to fuel the vehicles. In so many cases, the vehicles don't even have tires to move on. Zamfara became one of the worst. And you and I know, even if you go on Google, by every indices, you will testify to the fact that one of the most backward states has been Zamfara for a simple reason as well: bad governance. Just common drinking water, pipe-borne water in that state became a very serious issue. We saw just not too long ago, before this government came on board, where about 17 children lost their lives trying to go and source for water somewhere else from the state capital. So you can imagine, I can reel this out to you over and over. The list is almost endless. Why the people of the states, even, when we talk about state capital, you want to believe, oh, every presence of governor should have been felt first and foremost at the state capital. But we're talking about the state capital and nothing is moving. Nothing is happening.
All right,
nothing seems to even be working.
So let me answer your question.
I'm going to hold on. I'm going to answer your question because your question
Mr.
is saying,
Musa,
what
we
has this
still
man
have
achieved?
enough time to talk about all of these challenges and what the governor intends to do to address these challenges you've mentioned. But then, Governor
Okay.
Dauda Lawal's 1 month in office has been smooth, as attested to by many. So does that mean the previous administration left some funds and maybe logistics for him to settle down seamlessly?
You know, that's another funny question because you see, this man came on board, and I said it this earlier when I was laying this background, that just one account is got about 3 million naira from the previous government. And we saw the agencies, agents of the previous government coming on air to debunk all manner of allegations saying, oh, the state government left about 20 billion. Is it out of wickedness if actually you had about 20 billion in your coffers that you want to, leave behind to the next person coming on board, that you have not paid salaries for 3 months? Is it out of sheer wickedness that you couldn't even fix in an essential commodity, a very essential part of living, of existence, which is water, became an issue even in the state capital? You cannot leave 20 billion in the
So,
account.
Mr. Musa,
And then,
how is the
hold on,
governor
let me try.
coping
You
with
keep cutting
this?
me. Hold on, let me drive you, right? Let me make my point. All right.
All right.
Is that the water problem was just two major issues. There were backlog of bills to be paid to the power generating company, which you refused to pay. Chemicals needed at the water board to provide drinkable water at the states, just even the state capital and the environs. You cannot have 20 billion and out of wickedness, you shut that out. You say, no, I'm doing this because I want the incoming governor to come and inherit it so that he can walk. This governor came on board and has to, worry about most of this, your mess, trying to clean up your mess. In 30 days, we saw how much this man has done. He's tried to fix every of your mess, everything you have left undone, everything you felt, oh, it doesn't matter. This is Nigeria. You can get away with anything. You don't need to, prove to anybody at this juncture. And you see, one of the things I feel that governance is all about is about knowing what to do. It's about knowing before you come in, you already study the terrain, you know what the problems are, you know where to hit the ground running. Governor Dauda Lawal came in and he hit the ground running because it's a man who is coming from a background where result is the whole thing. Result means the world. Result-oriented individuals will always achieve.
Mr.
Because
Musa,
in 30 days, we saw that he achieved quite a lot of things that in 4 years his predecessor couldn't achieve.
Mr. Musa, so I want to let you know that
Absolutely.
we will talk about all of these issues one after the other. So I would implore you
Good.
to kindly respond to my question, each question
Uh,
as appropriate as enough. All right. So how is the governor coping with all of this?
well, he's coping because, like I told you, he's coming from a background that is result oriented. You see, when you're coming in as a governor or as a president, and I'll give you an example of let's even take Asiwaju's government, for example, because this is a man who knows what the problems are, who knows where to fix this problem from, where to take it over from. And in few days, in 30 days, you can also access that government because it's not about being partisan. It's about being realistic because we're talking about human lives. We're talking about good governance. Whenever you see good governance, you don't need to close your eyes. So far, so good. The Asiwaju presidency has proven to, beyond reasonable doubt, that he's coming here to work. And it's the same thing that Governor Lawal hit the ground, no money to run the government. He's done so many things. One of the things he's done, and I'm going to tell you the issue of water in Zamfara State, where some kids had to lose their life for. He went to work. Immediately he came on board, he tried to identify what the problems are. Today there's pipe-borne water flowing all over the place in Gusau town and its environs.
All right.
That is how you begin to assess people who know what to do, people who know what governance is all about. Within the 30 days that he came into office, He's already moved back to work because within that time, NECO and WAEC were not registered for in Zamfara. You can imagine how Zamfara is one of the most backward in terms of education in this country, or let's even take Northern Nigeria as a case study. And yet, his predecessor felt it doesn't matter. Those money they don't need to be paid because there are backlogs of people, monies they are owing both WAEC and NECO that they refuse to pay. When
So,
this governor
just
came in
like
within the
you've
shortest possible
implied,
time, what he did, hold on, let me make this point. What he tried to do was to have some conversations with NECO and WAEC and say, look, give us a short window. We can meet up, and a short window was provided. Schools can actually upload their candidates online and register them for this. And that has been taken care of in terms of payment.
All right.
So let me hear your question before
So,
I
just
go
like
on.
you've implied, Governor Lawal's administration is accusing Matawali of misappropriation and has now called on the
Yes.
EFCC to investigate him. What prompted this?
What prompted it?
Absolutely, yes.
What wouldn't have prompted it? Is there anything that wouldn't have prompted it? I'm coming into a state where we have so many issues, and I can't see what the monies under your administration has been expended on. 13 billion naira, for example, was expended on cars. And I came into office, I can't see a single car to use. None of my cabinet members can see a single car to use. 13 billion naira in 4 years to buy cars. Are we talking about a private jet? So these are the issues. Whoever it is that is coming in, honestly, you should pity the governor as we speak right now. You should pity him. That how do you intend to cope? How do you intend to navigate around this murky waters? Because you've inherited so many challenges. You spent about 11.5 billion naira over Gusau Airport, and there is nothing tangible that anybody can point at the airport as we speak now. And you know, sometimes when governors want to hide or something, they go after white elephant projects that benefits no one. Because the indigence of the state, what are the priorities? Because you need to deal with challenges based on priorities. 50 billion naira on projects within the government house alone. An investigation has shown that a lot of this project went to companies that directly the former governor was is still a director in. Who wouldn't get worried when you inherit this kind of issues? It is worrisome. It is worrisome for so many reasons. One, Zamfara has been a killing ground for so many years. You will think that whoever is coming in as governor will have some sympathy, will have some empathy, will have some human feelings to say, look, enough of all this. Why should my own home state be a killing ground? How do we hit the ground running? How do we stop all this? How do we bring the people of the states out of these economic issues? Zamfara is one of the poorest states in northern Nigeria for reasons that you can easily just place your fingers on. Bad governance. And that became so resonant, so, obvious in the last 4 years. It is really, really saddening that we have a state where the governor, for whatever reason, I'm talking about the former governor, does not think that it is important for him to write his name in gold because you had issues on ground. Why don't you take it one after the other? If you have the capacity to start approaching all of them at a time, you should display that. But I'm using one at a time because there's nothing visible on ground to really show that you've got the capacity to even do anything at all. Governor Lawal came on board. We saw that in 30 days of his administration, one of the first major steps he took was that he came to Abuja. And he feels, because of course you and I know that the governor does not have power over security agencies in the state, he started talking with the heads of the security agencies, started meeting with them, Chief of Army Staff and all of that, trying to explain to them, this is what the security report is talking about. How do you
we'll
come
get to
in?
that.
How do you help?
Before that, you talked about the car. So let me ask this question. There was so much bad blood over the retrieving of government vehicles from those who served in the past administration. Shouldn't this have been avoided?
Say that again. I didn't hear some parts of your question.
All right. Because you talked about some cars, there was so much bad blood over the retrieving of government vehicles from those who served in that administration. So I'm asking, shouldn't this have been avoided?
Avoided how? You must be a wicked human being.
Many said there were better ways to address that.
No, I'm trying to answer your question. Let me respond. Anybody, I'm not just talking about when I say you must have been, I'm not referring to you.
Absolutely.
For anybody who becomes the governor. If the money expended on those cars is actually not personal funds, I've seen a situation where a governor will come in and say, I have used my personal fund. I have decided to say I'm not going to earn salary for so number of months or whatever. But if you're not wicked and you come in as a new governor and you check the records and the record says in 4 years, 13 billion has been expended in cars. You and I know what cars are, what the price of cars in Nigeria. Let's even take the rate of today, not the rate of whether 3 or 4 years back. And then 13 billion, read my lips, we're talking about billions. And then you can't find any single car that is usable. Why do you want to look the other way? Because governance is about accountability. The way you're going to account for every of your deeds when you're leaving office or when you left office, you also want your predecessor to be able to tell you, perhaps he's innocent, maybe his aides scattered them away. Somebody should be able to answer the question, but responsibility falls on the governor at the time. That how come I cannot have access or I cannot retrieve this and that? 13 billion naira on cars in 4 years, and we have to start sourcing for money to buy another set of cars. It's wickedness for you to overlook that kind of issue. You need to tell yourself what the truth is. And part of telling yourself the truth is to say that, yes, perhaps I want to look the other way. I just want to hit the ground running. I just don't want to start complaining. But let some things be left on ground for us to even start moving the state forward. But you cannot loot everything. You can't take all the cars. If you look at the money, why? How come the cars? It shouldn't be, I'm not going to look away. And I don't think any right-thinking individual is going to look away. If we're talking about moving the state forward, everybody should be brought to book. You should be accountable for whatever you do. If we encourage this kind of culture, this country is going to be going backward by 20 years. So everybody needs to give an account of what you have done in office. You're leaving office, every car has been looted out of the government offices and all of that. It's not done, it's not acceptable, and nobody, no right-thinking individual is going to accept that. So really, you need to understand the plight of this man. And if you see his disposition, his mien, you will know that Governor Dauda Lawal is a gentleman. He's a gentleman. He's coming from a terrain where people don't witch hunt each other. Everybody just do their work. And those companies move forward. Those banks move forward. Those multinationals move forward. But if we continue to say, oh, this is Nigeria, anything goes, I'm not going to ask questions because I don't want anybody else to ask me when I'm leaving office, then we have a bigger problem before us.
All right, thank you. I've been speaking with Samaila Musa, a political analyst and public affairs commentator. Tonight, we're focusing on Zamfara State politics and matters arising. Let's take a break and we'll be right back. Please stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us. This is Politics Tonight, where we dig and go beyond the headlines. I've been speaking with Samaila Musa, a political analyst and public affairs commentator, tonight to discussing Zamfara State politics and matters arising. All right, Mr. Musa, just like we were expecting, there was supposed to be a seamless transition from the old government to the new one. Is it that you did not get cooperation during the transition phase?
Well, you see, the transition is another issue, right? But I prefer we just deal with the issues at hand, because as far as this visionary person is at the helm of affairs, he's more concerned about how to move forward. You understand? I mean, politicians will always try to sometimes pull some stunts and make some things really look bad, or because of bad blood in politics and all of that. But I just want to address important issues, because we should be looking beyond transition. Now, transition has happened. It's about what I met on ground as a governor, what I've seen so far.
All right.
You get what I'm saying?
Talking
So
about
what I've
important
seen
issues.
what you
Talking
say?
about important issues. Let's go back to what we were discussing before we went on that break. So many see the
Okay.
season of vehicles, including Matawale's personal vehicles, as being in a bad taste. Don't you think this is
Sorry,
bad
take it from
for?
beginning, please. Take it from beginning.
All right, so many see the season of vehicles, including Matawale's personal vehicles, as being in a bad taste. So don't you think this is bad? I mean, for the reputation of the Dauda Lawal administration.
You see, it's a very funny thing, honestly. If people are, some people have that kind of perception, it means that perception itself should be tagged barbaric. What's the meaning of that? All I'm saying is about accountability. I come in to govern my states, for example, and I'm saying if 13 billion has been expended on cars in 4 years, where are the cars? I'm not supposed to start buying new cars when the issue at hand, we need to handle them by level of their priority. It's about solving insecurity issue in Zamfara. It's about bringing it out of this economic doldrum it's found itself. Trying to go and borrow money to buy more cars, it actually should be out of the way. And I'm saying official vehicles, you work in TVC. If you're given official vehicle, when you're retiring, you know it's part of the things you will go and retire. You don't need to be told. You work in TVC, there's a driver carrying around with TVC vehicle. When you are leaving TVC, you need to drop it. And that's why I have issues with people when they're trying to, trivialize issues, politicize issues. The man is just asking simple questions. Those vehicles belongs to the state. They should have been
Mr.
used
Musa,
until the mechanics declared that these ones can no longer move on the road.
Mr. Musa, in this
His
case, I'm
Dauda Lawal
talking
should use
about
those vehicles and his cabinet until they can no longer work.
Mr. Musa, in this case, I'm talking about the governor's personal vehicles. It was alleged that his personal vehicles were also seized.
By who? Who went and investigated to tell you that these were his own personal vehicles? Because when I use the money of TVC to obtain a car, and TVC is aware that it was its own money that I approved to buy a car for myself as official vehicle, and I don't want to leave it behind, or I don't want to retire it when I'm leaving office, TVC has the right to call me to order, to say these are part of the properties of the state.
All right.
Lawal cannot take these vehicles to his
Personal
own
vehicles
house.
were not seized. Is that it?
The personal vehicles are not seized. Because you should be able to account for. Look, let me tell you, it's even very simple. If you even want to claim that personal vehicles have been seized, the simple analogy should be that the ones that you bought with the state money. But if that is not the case, because I'm just using that as an example, if let's even say worst case scenario, that was what happened, and that was still the case. So,
all right. All right, Mr. Musa, let's talk about insecurity. Mr. Musa, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, so let's talk about insecurity. Insecurity has been a big challenge in Zamfara State. How will you assess efforts made so far by the governor to address this?
You see, the moment Dauda Lawal came on board, one of the things he did, can you actually see me, because I'm not seeing anything on my screen right now?
Please go on. Please go on.
Okay. One of the things he did was to come to Abuja to begin to meet with the top brass of the military, the Nigerian police, everybody that is actually got a role to play in securing the state. And of course, whatever he can do are also limited by the fact that he does not have them in his purview. I mean, like they don't act up under his instructions. So the best thing to do, which every sane human being will want to do, is to come and dialogue with them. How do you want to help us? We're suffering, killings every day. What have you done in the past? What are you doing presently? How can we move forward? Based on my own knowledge also of what's going on in the States, this is what I can contribute. Let's have a synergy. Let's work together. What matters is that this issue of insecurity in Zamfara has to come to an end. And that is what he has done. And he just get to office and started broadening over all the issues, all the challenges is made on ground. You can be like, I inherited insecurity, even my predecessors couldn't solve the issues, blah, blah, blah. But from day one, he hits the ground running. And I'll tell you, any person who is in government right now, one of the things you can do to yourself to help yourself to actually write your name in gold is to say that you have a diary where you report to yourself what are you achieving per day in office. By your 100 days in office, there should be a record of every day of that 100 days. This is what I did.
All right.
Do that on your diary, then you begin to make sense.
So one of the efforts made by the governor to address insecurity includes provision of succor for victims and visiting affected communities. How significant is this?
That's very significant because you see, governance is about presence. Governance is about leadership. Leadership that comes with strength, leadership that is motivational, leadership that actually encourages, inspires people. What we saw in the 8 years of Buhari, and I'm going to digress a little bit. In the 8 years of Buhari, what we saw was a government that is so uninspiring. It doesn't inspire anyone. It never motivates anyone to feel that they belong to a country where their leaders actually make them feel important. If an American citizen is kidnapped in Nigeria, not even somewhere in America, America will deploy every resources needed to go and rescue that individual from whatever it is. It is significant because people want to feel sense of belonging, that I belong to a country where the government of my nation actually feels my life is important. It encourages me, it motivates me, it makes me want to sacrifice my life for a government that I feel actually recognizes my existence. And that is what this man has brought on board. Those visitations really resonates, really send messages to the people to say that, okay, now, even though the problem is not over yet, but we have a government that feels with our lives and our properties are important, that it is even worthy of coming over to assess the situation, to have a conversation with us, to let us understand what the government is planning to do next.
All right.
To stop these issues.
All right. So I also know that recently Governor Dauda joined Northwest governors to meet with President Tinubu on insecurity in that region. So what can the president do at this stage?
What kind of work?
What can the president do at this stage?
Yeah, you see, when they met, the president actually assured them that he already knew about the problems before he came in. And I give kudos to the president. It shows strong leadership. That's what he's displayed. He has shown that it's not just about seeking power. We saw his predecessor came into power 6 months after we're still not seeing any minister in place. But he came on board and assured them, you don't need to go over and over, broaden over all these issues, telling me about what these issues are and what they are not. I also have the knowledge. I've spoken to people. I have the foreknowledge of what's going on. And by the grace of God, we're going to work together because we need to put Nigeria first in whatever we do before we bring party issues into it. You're first in Nigeria before you become a member of a political party. And that is what the president has also displayed. And that is key. That is important. That is something that we have also been looking forward to. And by that singular act, also reassured the governors that we have a president who already, we don't need to be seeking or paying some other persons to be able to have audience with him so that we can tell him the problems we're confronting in our state so that he can dish out orders. But this is a man who has already he has the foreknowledge of what's going on, and he has assured us that we're going to work together. So what is left for them is to go back to the state and begin to talk to stakeholders. How do we solve these problems? So that I know what to tell the president when it is time. When I'm asked this question, what do I say? The ones I don't know about, I need to ask. What are the past issues? What are the recent issues? What are the issues we're going to confront insecurity-wise in the nearest future? We begin to put all that on the table and put the chairs on the table and begin to discuss them. That is what governance is all about.
So his meeting with the immediate past chief of defense staff on tackling banditry, what impact do you think such collaborations can have on the war against banditry in the state?
You and I know that is going to go a long way. Sometimes one of the issues we've always been having in regards to that is that people, or we see state governors trying to lord their wishes over some of this, military top brass or security agencies top brass, and then we have ego issues coming, and then everybody's feeling, I'm a boss, you didn't employ me, I'm not working for your state, I'm also just saddled with the responsibility of taking care of your state. You can't talk to me like I'm a nobody. And the governor is also feeling I'm an elected governor. But when we have cool-headed people who really want solutions, because in the long run, what matters is solutions. It's not about whether you are able to use your power or not. It's not about trying to lord your wish over one person or trying to make sure that you want to prove, oh, I'm superior to you. What matters is that because governance is servanthood, you need to be able to be a servant. How do you become a servant? Is to know what are the issues confronting your people, and you want to go all the way. You want to stoop low, you want to go on your knees, if that is what it takes, to make sure that you bring solution to the issues confronting them. So in the nutshell is this kind of synergy will go a long way in solving the issues, in trying to solve the insecurity issues first and foremost. Because once you have a good understanding between the governor and the top of the security agencies, then honestly you're halfway gone.
All right, so one more on the security challenge in that state. That's talking about the impact of traditional rulers in securing communities. The immediate past administration sanctioned some traditional rulers for alleged support to banditry. How do you think the government should engage them?
Well, I think there's a need for a sense of belonging. They need to be reined in. They need to be assured that whatever it is, they are part of governance. Because in the first place, I don't think there's a need to have traditional rulers if we don't think they're actually relevant in governance or in running the affairs of this country. So if that is the case, that we feel we're relevant, yeah, they're traditional rulers, but they have a role to play, is to really bring them closer and begin to engage them and make them feel they are important in solving the myriads of problems confronting either the state or their communities. So there's a need for synergy between whoever is the governor and the traditional rulers to actually begin to see it that, look, it's not about money. It's not about wielding power. It's about securing the lives and property of those people that we are governing or that we are leaders over. Because wherever you find yourself in this whole world, the number one priority of any governance or any kingdom that you're a traditional ruler over is the security of life and property. That is your number one priority. Right. Outside that, the rest are secondary. So it is very important and very key, and that's going to go a long way.
Right. So let's talk about agriculture, which the governor said is very dear to him. What is the state government doing to boost the sector in the states?
You see, the issue of agriculture, you need to take it slowly. And I say slowly, and you need to take note of the word slowly that I mean. Is because, honestly, anywhere you have insecurity issues, you're talking about farming at the same time, because that's what agriculture is about. You're going to have issues if you don't solve one before you embark on the other. Because people are being kidnapped right in their farms. Whatever laudable projects you're bringing to the farms, when the farmers cannot go to the farm, it amounts to nothing. Insecurity problem is number one. Should be a number one priority, should be what you're trying to deal with first and foremost, because that is the basis. It's a fulcrum on which every other economic developmental projects can actually stand on. So many farmers have vacated their farms. So many people have vacated their own villages where they have ancestral lands where they farm. So whatever laudable projects you want to bring in agriculture, I think the number one priority of any right-thinking individual or government is to say insecurity needs to be dealt with first and foremost, such that these farmers that we're bringing these laudable projects on are for actually can go to their farms, actually can go and do their businesses peacefully without any intimidation from nowhere, without any form of threats. Other than that, honestly, what you'll be doing is being
All right.
being clever by half.
So let me also ask you about the meeting between the governor and the DG of National Automotive Design in Abuja in his quest to address youth unemployment and restiveness. What results do you think this can bring?
That's a laudable meeting. That's a laudable stride, because you see, when you check the indices of development, how you can rate states to actually be a state that is also doing well. You and I know that Zamfara is actually, in the list of the list, on that list. And then one of the issues confronting that state is because bad governance has made unemployment to actually rise to some exponentials that honestly is beyond your comprehension. Unemployment, economic-wise, whatever indices you want to put on the table to actually want to rate a state that is backward. One of the things you can do is to begin to harness every other way that you can make employment to actually rise exponentially. One of the key reasons why people go into criminality, into banditry, into terrorism and all of that is because they don't have nothing doing. If you are not taking these issues one after the other and addressing them, because you want to solve the issue of insecurity, and then you're just taking it from the top, you're not doing the right thing. What you're doing is you're just trying to show to the world that let the media just feel that you're doing something. So one of the ways you can go about that is to start saying what really caused this insecurity, begin to look beyond the state you are, rather than how did we get here? So you need to retrace your steps and say, okay, how do we solve the issue of unemployment such that the people who are gainfully employed are not being easily lured into criminalities? So, and that is one of the things the government is actually making as front burners in its agenda of bringing an end to all the myriads of problems in Zamfara.
All right, Sadiq, we have a few minutes to go, but quickly let's talk about some of these issues and what the government intends to do to address this. I mean, earlier you talked about, the first one is the civil service, and earlier you talked about the governor inheriting backlog of salaries. So what has the government done about payments of salary arrears in 1 minute?
When you have people who actually know what to do, when you have result-oriented individuals in positions, when you have people who are target-oriented, who feels this job needs to be done regardless of whatever odd is before us. One of the things the governor has done is to go and source for wherever way to make sure, because the state cannot be productive when people who are toiling day and night for the state are not getting their salaries. Their wages are not being paid. They can't feed their families. They can't do nothing. So what you're going to be doing when your staff is being underpaid or not being paid at all is that they're going to be producing 1/3 of their productivity in terms of rating. So the governor has been able to make sure that 2 months' salary, first and foremost, are being paid before Salah. And that is laudable. It means he knows what it takes for you to be able to get a maximum program for people who are going to work for you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Musa. Sadly, we have to go, but I'm sure we will have some other time to talk about this extensively. Thank you very
I
much.
have a lot of things to talk about. I thought we had 1 hour, and I'm just
Yeah,
shocked that
it's
we
one
already
hour. It's one
exhausted the
hour
time.
already. It's 1 hour.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry
But we
about
will
that. But
definitely
you
have
know, you
another
keep cutting me
time.
at intervals, but
We
that's
will,
fine.
thank
All
you. We'll
right,
have another
I'm
time to
fine.
talk
Thank you so
about this.
much
I've
for
been
having me.
speaking with a
Oh,
political analyst and public affairs commentator, Samaila Musa, tonight we focused on Zamfara State politics and matters arising. Thank you very much, Mr. Musa. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to more conversation with you. Thank you very much for coming.
you're welcome. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
And thank you very much for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But the conversation continues from here. Get in touch with us on Twitter at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Join us for the repeat episode at midnight and tomorrow for another edition of Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Goodbye.